All right. Welcome, 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 everybody. My name is Mike DeLuca. You are experiencing the Integrative Wellness and Development Podcast. And as I said, I'm your host, Mike DeLuca. We have a great program tonight. We have an amazing guest. We have amazing people, you who are joining us, which I'm always grateful for both. A little bit of housekeeping. It's important to know that on this show, first of all, the experiences and opinions are that of our guests and don't necessarily reflect integrative wellness and development. We do not make any claims to either diagnose, treat, or prevent any illnesses or conditions, both physical, emotional, or spiritual. What you get is your personal experience, and everybody's experience is different. But the purpose of our show is to educate, right? To inspire, perspire, and open up a world of information and opportunity to learn and to grow. And that's what we're all about. This show is not sponsored by anybody, so we don't have any influences. We don't have any connection to any products we're going to sell to you. We're not trying to sell anything. We're trying to share information. And we'll be learning from you tonight, just like you'll be learning from our guests. So with that, I'm going to move to share a little bit of PowerPoint, and we will get started with that in a second. There we go. So we'll be introducing you to our guest in just a minute. Our guest is Shaun Lether, and Shaun is from the Hawaiian INDS, also Spiritual Awakenings International, and we'll give you his bio in a minute. But I wanted to start out with just a brief overview of this process of spiritual awakening and transformation. And this process is as old as existence, right? And it starts out with that mystical wondering, right, of the unknown. Who are we? Why are we here? Where have we been? Have we lived before? What happens after death? What happens before birth? Right? Um, all of these questions that naturally come up, the process of answering them is part of that process of the spiritual awakening journey. Now, in the social consciousness that we live in, and as we have evolved in cultures, usually what happens is we ponder these mystical questions, and all kinds of stories come up about the answers. Everything from a giant frog laid an egg in the sky and it became the sun, and, all kinds of different mythologies, the gods of Olympus and the Norse gods. And all of these mythologies are attempts to understand and answer these questions, but they're not the true answers. What happens is this mythology begins to consolidate, it repeats over and over until it becomes organized into a theology. And that theology, which becomes very clear, very strict, and repetitive, an organization of some sort always evolves and revolves around that theology in order to maintain standardization, maintain control, and maintain a clarity. But we get trapped within the mythology and the theology and the organizations until the time comes when we hear the call of soul, that call inside of us that is constantly trying to get us to awaken, right? Wake up out of the matrix. Wake up out of the programming you've been given. Wake up out of the traditions and habits that have been ingrained in you generation after generation. The call of soul is so strong that it leads us to experiential discovery. We start to go out, we start to look for answers, and all of a sudden we start to have experiences, personal experiences. And as time goes on, those experiences lead us to there's an actual methodology that we can follow to connect directly with the source of all divine truth. And for many people, every individual, it might be a different way. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But once we've connected with the methodology, we begin to practice it, and we begin to become more aware and more conscious and more courageous. That leads us to that personal spiritual awakening, and the awakening leads to transformation from the human to the superhuman, from the asleep to the spiritually awake. So we're going to be talking about that. And some of the trigger experiences that lead us, right, to this awakening are near-death experiences, right? That's one of the most dramatic ones you can possibly think of. And we're going to kind of focus on that tonight with our guest. But life before and life after life and life after death experiences, right? They're all very kind of dramatic, but they are awakening us into understanding there's more than just this physical shell and the world that is surrounding us. There's more to our spiritual existence than just that. Other triggers are having spontaneous out-of-the-body experiences, having lucid dreams, traveling in our dreams, then moving into that conscious, what's called soul travel, where our highest nature is going out into higher worlds. They talked about 7 levels of heaven and all kinds of, higher inner worlds that we move through as a soul, as, an astronaut of these higher planes as soul. Other triggers are connection with a spiritual being that is either there to inspire us, guide us, shock us, support us, love us. And that can be the trigger to help us on our journey towards our spiritual awakening and transformation. And then finally, with the help of these beings and by practicing the techniques we've learned and working with individuals who've already had the transformations, we can be guided into conscious expansion all the way into connecting to our true divine self and our connection with the divine. And that brings our connection with all life and all others. So that's just laying the groundwork for what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I want to get back here. I'm very, very grateful we have the chance to have this guest with us tonight. Shaun Lether is an amazing, amazing man with an incredible heart that stopped a couple of times, and we're grateful that somehow it got started again. But I want to tell you a little bit about Shaun. A very impressive biography, and I'm going to read it to you. Through a series of spiritually transformative experiences, STEs, not to be confused with STDs, and near-death experiences, NDEs, right? Not to be confused with NDAs, okay? With their powerful after effects, Shaun Lether woke up to his true spiritual nature and discovered his life purpose. That purpose did not revolve around his 4 business degrees or accomplishments in marketing, business, and real estate. Rather, his soul's purpose centered around mind, body, and spirit healing and being of service to others through what he experienced and learned from all of that. In 2004, while flying from Los Angeles to Hawaii, Shaun had an abdominal hernia incarcerate and strangulate, which caused his intestines to begin to die. 4 days later, he was rushed into an emergency surgery where 7 feet of necrotic intestines were removed. Due to severe infection, his abdomen was left open for 6 months to heal, and he was not allowed to leave Hawaii. Shaun never did go back to his previous home in Los Angeles. He stayed in Hawaii, where he experienced close to 20 years of trauma, ego death, and spiritually transformative experiences. The crescendo came in 2018 with a profound near-death experience, which for Shaun was a confirmation and rebirth after a life of trial by fire. Knowing he was forever changed and in the midst of a spiritual emergency, in 2019, Shaun started a small sharing group to support near-death experiencers and spiritually transformative experienced people in Hawaii, which has grown to become Hawaiian IANDS. With over 10,000 members worldwide, he has created and run several NDE, STE, and Life After Death Facebook groups with a combined membership of over 1,100,000 members. Shaun has learned that as he helps others heal, so is he healed. He facilitates experiences sharing groups with many spiritual organizations, as well as groups for post-traumatic stress, trauma survivors, and offers private mentoring and coaching for NDEers and STEers, as well as psychic mediumship sessions. Shaun is a passionate student and teacher of A Course in Miracles, as well as a devotee of Paramahansa Yogananda, the Self-Realization Fellowship. I want to encourage you to visit Shaun's site, ShaunLether.com, for more information and also to donate to support his very selfless efforts that he is doing day after day after day. So, with that, I would like to stop our share, and I would like to share with you our guest for this evening. Welcome, Shaun. We are so grateful you are here. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Wow. Thanks. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. And I loved your explanation, and it's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you, and we are very excited that you're here, not only working with us on Zoom, but we are live on Facebook, and we have a bunch of people there who are joining us on Facebook, and we are going to be taking their questions as well as questions from the Zoom audience a little bit later. So, Shaun, we have lots to talk about. First of all, let's define a near-death experience, and let's talk about the three that you had. Not one, not two, but three, right? How would you define a near-death experience?
For me, in my the main difference between them and some other spiritually transformative experiences is either impending death or you did die, or not just leaving your body, but either the impending death or fear of death or death occurs is how I would define near-death experience versus the other experiences, because in the near-death experience you can have a white light experience, but I know people who have not had NDEs who have also had white light experiences. So for me, the main difference between other spiritual experiences is the actual impending death.
Okay. So could you tell us about your first NDE, and then we'll go to your second and your third.
So the first one, I was 6 months old, and at the time, I didn't know that that's what it was, but I was in the ICU, and again, and they thought that I was not going to make it, and I was in an oxygen tent, And what I do know is that growing up, after that, I had this connection to the divine that um, was more profound than it should be. I mean, I started seeing things and praying and having this personal connection from a very early age, and I knew that it wasn't me. That was really the biggest thing. Is I when I think back on it, the biggest thing was I knew that I knew things and that I was getting this guidance, but I knew it wasn't me. I knew it was coming from somewhere else. And so it really affected me and that way. And then, I grew up in an LDS family and in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I think part of my issue growing up is what I didn't understand is in a lot of organized religion, you need a prophet or a bishop or somebody who, speaks on your behalf to God, right? And even though, we pray, but the guidance seems to come from a leader. And I didn't really understand that. So yeah, so that was my first thing. And I had a lot of premonitions and things were going to happen, but I was also in a very dysfunctional family. So my guidance was telling me one thing, and my parents were telling me something else. So it created a big cognitive dissonance for quite a while.
This is a really important point, and I want to highlight it for a moment, and that is families, culture, religious background, educational training, right? All of these things can create that box around us and can interfere with us having that direct connection with the divine, which we were created to have. And I truly believe that to get us out of the box, when we're at that point spiritually where we're ready to remember who we really are, why we're really here, and what we came to serve, those three questions really important, right? Um, it takes a lot of courage, but we get a lot of help in breaking out of that box. And sometimes we have to almost break to break out of the box. So that leads us to your second ND. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and you're so right, everything that you just said, because I had this knowing but it was always in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
Uh, Even though I pursued other things, and I still had this knowing in the back of my mind that I had a greater purpose than what I was doing at the time. Uh, so so because of that, I went and I pursued all these degrees, and I started making a lot of money. I love plants, and I did landscaping and loved it, and made a lot of money doing it, and then did real estate. But I wasn't happy, and literally, I felt like I had everything that I could want, and I remember actually saying, I'm not happy to myself. And this was in 2003 December that I had that experience where I just realized I kind of achieved what I thought you're supposed to achieve, and I wasn't really fulfilled. So anyway, I was going to buy some property in Hawaii, not move here, but I was on the plane to come to Hawaii, and I used to do modeling and acting and all of that, and was in perfect shape and cared about everything superficial. Anyway, I had given myself an abdominal hernia, and I had no idea how dangerous those can be. I just like laughed at it, like, it's just an extra ab. So anyway, on the plane, the minute the plane took off from Los Angeles, the hernia strangulated. And if anyone knows what that means that the abdomen kinks, or your intestines kink, and nothing can pass through. So as they kink, they start to die. And most people die in 24 to 48 hours. And I went for about 4 days. And back then, I was only into homeopathic um, um, medicine. So I didn't go to the emergency room as soon as I should have. By the time I went, my chest was black and blue, and they knew immediately. And I was in Hilo, Hawaii, which for people that have been there, it's about as rural old Hawaii as you can get. And coming from Los Angeles, and going to this Hilo hospital was it was an experience on its own. And so they knew immediately what was going on. And the doc, as they're wheeling me into the emergency, the doctor says, "I don't know what we're going to find. I'm going to do my best." And that's when I started leaving my body. And in that near-death experience, it was kind of like a dark void. And I could see up to the right a light and a tunnel. And it's weird because I really didn't know about near-death experiences. I'd kind of heard of them, but I didn't know about them. I wasn't really into them. That was not my life then. And but somehow I just knew, like, no, I don't want to go to the light. I do not want to die. And I had a guide with me that, in my understanding and experience, nobody dies alone. There's always somebody. And so this guide, or upper being, was there. And I'm like, no, you can't let me die. I won't die. And if I do die, I won't accept it. And then I'm just going to be a ghost here haunting this hospital, and nobody's going to find me. So I had no control. Before I knew it, I was going to the lights. And this experience was rather quick. Before I knew it, I mean, I experienced this profound love. I saw my life before, but it was real quick. Before I knew it, I woke up. I'd had the surgery. My stomach was open, and I had this amazing love, but also I was apologizing to everybody who I could apologize to for anything that I've done. And so for a period that changed me. But because they had to cut out all these intestines, they said, you can't go back for 6 months. You can't leave. And that was not easy. But once I surrendered, it was amazing. And I said, okay, well, if I have to stay here, I want to recover by a waterfall. Sure enough, Homes and Land magazine, beautiful property, 8 acres, private river, waterfalls, and just amazing. So I went there and rented it, and then ended up buying it. And I never went back to my houses in California. I just sold everything. And so that was that experience. And from then is when I started having all kinds of other spiritual, mystical experiences there on the Big Island.
What do you feel were the most profound spiritual experiences that you had that helped you move forward in your process of spiritual awakening?
Well, at that time, I was going through this undoing, not realizing. So a voice told me. So on one hand, I was having these highs. Steven Spielberg, they rented my property and they filmed Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull. And so I'm meeting all the biggest people of Hollywood. And remember, I was doing acting and modeling in LA and never met those people when I lived there. But now all of a sudden they're at my house and they're paying a ton of money to rent it. And it was so surreal that that's going on. But a voice told me in the shower. Shower's a conduit, for those that ever wonder. Lots of amazing messages in the shower. Well, water's a conduit. So a voice told me, get ready. You're going to lose everything. And the funny thing is, I knew what it meant. It meant get ready spiritually. Get your spiritual tools in order. and I'd been doing A Course in Miracles since I was 18, since I met Marianne Williamson, but I was kind of like you know, hazard with it, and several other practices. But so what happened is literally I was having some amazing mystical experiences with Hawaiian, they call them kahuna, and learning some amazing things. I had some what do you call it? Old cemeteries on my property. It was an old Hawaiian village. Anyway, so I started having these mystical experiences, but at the same time, I started losing things. That everything that could go wrong did. All of us, I mean, my relationships, the financial market collapsed. If everyone remembers 2008, 2009, people are jumping out of windows. I had all this real estate on the Big Island, and I was developing this commercial village, and everything tanked. Everything that I've been working for in LA going away. And again, like I said, my relationships, my nephew who meant the world to me, my first nephew, he passed from cystic fibrosis, and I'll talk about him a little later. And before I knew it, by 2011, I left my property with a bag, basically a trash bag. I left everything and walked away. And that's when, again, I went to the next level, which we can talk about more. But if you have any questions about that before we go to the next.
Yeah, it's I mean, I've had very similar experiences to you with losing everything. We were talking about that earlier, and the folks who've been following our podcast for years know my story. Um, but it's important that this experience of losing, which is really the experience of letting go
Yeah.
of our past um, baggage.
Yep.
And you were talking earlier about things you thought were important, the goals that you thought, were important, material possession that you thought was important. All of those things are nice, and they're actually necessary in certain dosages. They're necessary for survival, right? But when we become controlled by them and owned by them, that's when we're coming to that point in our spiritual awakening. Oftentimes all of that stuff, gets taken away. And at that point in my life, I lost my funding for my project. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I lost my girlfriend. I lost my dog.
Right.
It was a bad country music song,
Yep.
but it was the most profound time in my life because it was just me and divine spirit and
Yep.
the spiritual teachers and guides and the personal development tools that I had. That's what I survived on. And they became proven reality, not just information or theology. They became proven reality and tools for me. So I hear you, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So let's move then. You talked about the awakening that started after that time.
Yeah.
You were also starting to have more experiences of communication and visitation, right?
Right.
Talk a little bit about that because that's something that a lot of people who are here tonight have had those experiences where beings
Right.
come and we think that they're not significant, and suddenly they make themselves known as messengers to
Yeah.
light the way for our next step. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one thing that happened was, which was pretty wild, and my little sister was there and she saw it. So when Steven Spielberg and all of them were there, I had moved down to this house that I have down in there was three houses on the property, and I'd moved down to this one that's by this old Buddhist cemetery. And my little sister and nephews were there, and she saw it. We woke up in the middle of the night with literally kahunas from the other side praying over us as if they knew what was getting ready for me. And actually, for her, she was going through her own personal transformation as well in Los Angeles. But that started happening. And when you said your dog, I forgot. I had a potbelly pig that she herself was a little bit of a celebrity. She was Steven Spielberg. Back then, they had the first iPhones. This was before the public had iPhones. Anyway, she was his screen saver, and he just loved this potbelly pig that wore a lei and had painted toenails. And she was in the newspaper and everything. But that is one of probably the most heart-wrenching thing for me, because I had her from a baby and she slept with me. But I just had to leave all of that stuff. So I I I moved in with a healer lady that was a big blessing, that started, just opened my world to things that I had always wondered about. And I'd been learning a little bit, but she kind of opened me up, and then or helped me open up and help me understand some of the things that were happening to me. And then I decided to move to Honolulu because I was on the Big Island. And so I moved to Honolulu, and I've always had this spiritual side and then the material side. And they would often struggle. I would kind of go back and forth. So anyway, when I moved over to Honolulu, I was trying to redo what made all this money before. I can do it again. But now I was not in flow. I didn't understand any of that. But what I couldn't understand is I used to make 40,000 a month easily. Now I can't even make 1,500 a month to pay my rent, like literally. And I was like, at that point, what is going on? Not understanding that I was literally out of alignment and working against my purpose and what my higher self had planned. So in 2015, my mother crossed over, and within 24 hours of her crossing over, because I was struggling, and she lived in Utah, and because of our dysfunction, and there wasn't going to be a memorial, and then they thought there was going to, there was all kinds of family issues. And so she told me within 24 hours, she says, you don't need to go. She shows me this beautiful garden, and she's sitting on a log, and these big, huge pine trees, which I thought, this is weird because I'm in Hawaii. And they looked like, pine trees somewhere else. So she showed me this place and said, that's where I'll be. Go there. It took for the next 6 months, she was coming to me more and more. And I asked her, why are you here? And she would say, to be the mother I couldn't be when I was alive, because she had mental health issues. She herself had had an NDE in 1975. And she had a lot of issues when she was alive. But now she just kept saying that. She didn't tell me what was going to happen to me within a year or so. She just kept saying to be the mother she couldn't be, which she was. And so she started showing me her life. And one of the most amazing things is when she showed me the 360-degree view about her whole life and how she was raised and everything that happened. It was like instant forgiveness. Like there's really nothing to forgive, because I understood why she was the way she was. And so we had this amazing healing from the other side, which I will always be so grateful for. So anyway, we continued with this connection. And then a sister was visiting about 6 months later. I'll try to make this fast. all of a sudden we were going to go hiking and do some things that I hadn't done before. We went in this valley where, you know what portals are and all that stuff, right? So there's a lot of portals in Hawaii, which I didn't even know what they were. I didn't know anything about them until I was in them. And even then I didn't understand. But I started going in to these portals, not knowing these are actual physical places, real places where the energy is. I can't even. That's probably another story. But anyway, as I started getting more and more dizzy in these places, we're heading up this hill to go on this hike to this place. As we're going up the hill, I was getting dizzier and dizzier. We park, and as I got out of the car, I was so dizzy. What I didn't realize is I'm opening up, right? Like I'm getting ready for, and we start going for a walk. I'm behind my sister, and on the left, I look over and there's my mom sitting on a log. And these trees, they're called Cook Island pines. They're tropical pine trees. I mean, they look like a pine tree, but they're tropical. And I broke down in tears, and I was just like, of course, my sister couldn't see her, but she was taking pictures with a camera, hoping that maybe orbs. But from then on, having this connection with her, and then from that, I started having other connections with. There was a big fire here by me. The people that died in the fire, they came to me, and they were confused. They didn't know they had died, and I didn't know. Like, I mean, really, I'm just experiencing this stuff. I didn't seek it, at least consciously. So I didn't even know then, like, to tell them to go to the light or to help them or anything. I was literally like, I don't know, somebody's, and what was amazing about that experience is that the guy, we had blonde hair and a blue shirt, an aloha shirt, and his mother, I could tell she was his mother, and she was lower than him, so I could tell she was in a wheelchair. Well, this was on us. So there was a fire on Friday in this hotel. Saturday night, they came into my condo. Tuesday, they give the autopsy, and guess what? This guy worked for Aloha Airlines, had blonde hair, and his mother was in a wheelchair, and the elevators didn't work. So they went under the bed, and they both died from smoke inhalation. So I started just having more and more experiences like that. And then, if you want to take a pause, we can go on before the next NDE, if you want.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is shining through here is part of the results or the effects of a near-death experience is an opening up of our consciousness and kind of opening up the walls that separate, different dimensions, right? Just the physical to the astral to, we can do that. And I think later on, we're going to talk about how you began to find tools and teachings and guidance. But before we have those tools and teachers and guidance, we usually have some kind of a traumatic experience like this. But now we are at the point in our spiritual evolution, and everybody who's watching this, I know you're at that point to where you recognize that we can die daily. We can let go of the illusion that this physical form is the only thing that exists. And we can shift our identity to the immortal spiritual essence of who we are. And you were experiencing the shift, but it was being done for you rather than done with you, right? Because that's how we learn, right?
Yeah.
We have to have this done for you before we have it done with us, and then we start doing it ourselves. And I just wanted to make that point that for those of you who are watching tonight and are watching next week and next month and whatever, um, it's not necessary to have a near-death experience to open your state of consciousness, but each of us has an individual karmic curriculum that we come into this life with that may necessitate that in order, not just for our experience, but the experience of everybody else who was going through it with you. And there were a lot of people who helped you. And so
Yeah.
they kind of had, by osmosis, transferable uh, realization and opening of consciousness that they wouldn't have had naturally. But because of the connection with you, they did. I want to jump from here to the important point you made earlier, and that is there are so many people having these experiences, whether they're near death, whether there's visitations, whether they're lucid dreams, out of the body experiences, whatever it is, and they may be natural or they may be shocking and traumatic. But for those out there that are having these and they don't understand what's happening to them, and they think they're going crazy, or they think there's something evil about it, or they think that there's something wrong about it. It's really important that there be a place and people to go to
Yeah.
talk about this. And that leads me into what's the work that you're doing so generously and selflessly, to be someone who can listen with awareness and authentic understanding and to validate them and their experiences. Tell me a little bit about how that started.
Yeah, because I couldn't tell anyone about this,
Sure.
honestly. I mean, I told one sister, and also the one who was there with me when I saw her, she knew what was going on. But I have this, very analytical mind. I need a lot of proof. I didn't know before my mom crossed over, even though I'd had this NDE, I still wasn't like beyond a shadow of a doubt knowing. So yeah, so I'm having all these experiences, and and then what happened is that I had this profound NDE. I got very sick, and this changed everything for me because and I'll quickly say what happened in that experience because obviously for time, but in that experience, everything changed. I went to the ICU. They said I was going to be not going to make up. My sisters came, they threw everything away, and I was on the ventilator. I was in the hospital for over 3 months and then rehab. My whole body shut down, everything shut down. That's when I started realizing everything that was happening. And there's certain things that are not going to tell us from the other side. So that's why my mom was really here, even though she still is the mother she couldn't be when she was alive. But she was here because if it wasn't for her and my nephew that had passed from cystic fibrosis, I wouldn't have made it through, and I wouldn't be here even now because they're still helping me. So yeah, so in this experience, I'll just tell you quickly that because I want to mention my nephew. When I was in there, I signed all the papers, that they weren't going to keep me on life support. I'd been on the ventilator. Um, so signed everything, not going to be on life support. And so now it's sink or swim. Going to take him off the ventilator. If he can't make it, if he doesn't, the last thing they'll do is try a tracheotomy. Other than that, it's done. They'd already cleaned out my apartment, thrown everything away. Anyway, as they're taking the tube out, my nephew had passed from cystic fibrosis in 2007. He appears at me at the ends of the bed, and he's up here, and he puffs his chest out like foghorn leghorn. And as they're pulling the tube out, the reason he showed me that is to show me to puff up he's trying to show me how to breathe because I'd forgotten how to breathe. So anyway, as they're taking the tube out, he breathes into me and I could breathe. I couldn't have saturation for a few months. I had to stay in the hospital with oxygen. But um, anyway, I then started having in the hospital experiences like that with more and more angels in bodies, not in bodies, blessings, all this stuff. I get out of the hospital a few months later. I'm having more of these experiences. You know how we all have seen people on the streets talking that we think are talking to themselves? I always wondered, but now I know not all of them are necessarily talking to themselves because I've been one of those people. And so I'm having all these experiences with beings in bodies, not in bodies, and not understanding everything that had happened. And I tried to integrate going to A Course in Miracles groups, chanting with the Hare Krishnas, going to the Buddhist temples and doing Dharma talks. And at some point, I realized I'm never going to be who I used to be. There was a part of me that was gone. The false me was gone because when I exited my body, I saw that I'd been living a dream and everything I believed about myself and the world was not correct. And so at some point I realized I need to talk to other people who have had these experiences. And so that's when I started the sharing group. And it's now grown to be members all over the world, thanks to COVID, because we started in person here. And then when COVID came out, started doing it on Zoom. And through all of this, I've found my purpose, which I knew that I had a purpose after the NDE, but I didn't know what it was. And so what I've learned is our purpose is never going to be some big grand like thing, like, it's going to be just listening to the guidance and following the breadcrumbs, at least for me. So that's how I got involved in helping other people, because what I found is we're all helping each other. We're healing together. And so it's not like one person healing another. It's our community and being together. We're all, helping each other.
That's really beautiful. And, we have in our audience a whole bunch of people from all kinds of different spiritual backgrounds. And, everything you're talking about is applicable to everything that everyone here is doing in their desire to be of service and create value. And one of the most important things I heard from you was part of our part of the way we can be of most service and most usefulness is to recognize the need to listen first to others, to hear their story, right? To question what did you learn from that, or how did that affect you? And to ask, what are you looking for, right? Rather than saying, oh, I have the answers, I have this and I have that, and here's this book and this, I have all the answers and I'm going to give them to you. We've all here learned that we bring so much more value to honoring the experience of the other person, to listen with our hearts, and to allow that spiritual force that connects us all to flow. But what I love that you do is you validate. You validate the experiences people are having so they don't feel weird and they don't feel evil and they don't feel crazy. And you give them a community to join, to be a part of. And for everyone listening, this is so important for us to do that. Whatever your background is, whatever your spiritual path or religion is, we're all connected. It all leads to God. It all leads to the connection we have with each other. Um, and you could be a spiritual community of one for that person. It's just you and them, but that's a community because of all the other spiritual beings that we are connected with, whether we know it or not, or see it or not. And I wanted to share a quick story. When I made the very scary decision to leave my parents' church, right? And I came from a very, very, very devout, Italian Roman Catholic background. And when I made that decision after nights, sleepless nights of worrying about, oh, am I going to, if I leave this, am I going to go to hell or am I going to be destroyed? And, but I had all of these experiences I was having, that were leading me to this. And um, I was really struggling with it. And I remember I had this dream, and there was this being that I recognized. It was probably from a former lifetime in India, but it was a being that I recognized. I recognized he had, when I was 3 years old, he appeared to me in my room. He came out of my wall in this beautiful golden light. And I'm there 3 years old and I'm looking and the wall is opening, the golden light is happening, and he's downloading all of this information. And you and I talked about we get downloaded oftentimes in a near-death experience or an out-of-the-body experience or a lucid dream. I was getting all of this download and I'm literally shaking, but then my heart opened, like it opened like a giant Grand Canyon. And I felt this love that my 3 year old self just had no capacity to understand. And when he was done, he started receding back into the wall. And I
Mm.
got up out of the bed and I ran to the wall to jump to join him. And I smashed into the wall. And he just looked at me with a little bit of compassion, a little bit of humor. And I said, "Where are you going? I want to be with you. How could you leave now?" He said, "I'm always with you, but you can't come where I am until you earn your wings." Right.
Mm.
So fast forward now to where I'm, in high school. I made the decision. I'm leaving, my parents' church, and I'm going to be looking for all these things and following these things. And we went to a nursing home. It was around Christmas time. We went to a nursing home, a bunch of us students, and my mom made cookies and someone else made cake, and we brought all this stuff for the residents. And I'm kind of slow, so I was the last one out of the car and the last one into the door. And I'm coming in with these cookies, and I noticed a resident, and he was, dressed in kind of, pajamas, and he's leaning against the wall. He's kind of doing this and mumbling. And I walk in, and all of a sudden, he straightens up, and his eyes are like lasers, and he walks right up to me. And I'm stuck right there. I can't move. I'm paralyzed. And he looks at me and he says, "If you open your heart and you trust the divine, it will guide you to everywhere you need to go. It will bring you everything you've ever needed. It will help you become what you came here to be if you just trust it." Right. And I'm like, and then he went on to tell me his whole life of how he was guided. And he went through all of these different experiences, gaining things, losing things, learning things. And then when he was done, he looked at me, he smiled, and then he went,
Mm.
right? And two of the orderlies came over, grabbed him. They looked at me and they said, "Has he been bothering you?" And I'm like, They said, "Well, don't listen to him. He's crazy." Right? And they took him away, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, here was the connection.
Yeah.
Here was the connection." They were in that, whoever the being was, whether it was him or whether he was being used, this elderly person was
Right.
being used, but we have that presence with us. We have the guidance with us. We have the opportunity, if we open our hearts and our attention. Those teachers, those guides, those masters, those protectors, they are there and they will let themselves be known. And sometimes it takes a traumatic experience to open us up to start looking and listening. So I wanted to share that with you. Um,
I love that story because, yeah, spirit uses whoever is open and available.
Yeah.
and they will use them to give us the message that we need. And while you were talking, something that I was reminded of, especially in NDEs, but it's all about surrender and realizing I don't know anything. Everything that I thought I knew got me right in the ICU a few times. And so letting go and surrendering and realizing I know nothing and letting the spirit in, it is really one of the biggest keys in my experience to awakening, to having this experiences, because until we realize, no, we don't know, we think we know, but until we're ready to let go of what we think we know, and then in my case, literally being smacked down, brought to my knees, which is, I think, one of the benefits of an NDE. It's not beneficial while it's happening, but being brought to your knees and being at the mercy of, please let me, seeing that I didn't do what I came here to do, and please let me do what I came here to do. And that's what I spent a lot of time in the ICU asking. But I love that story of yours because that is how it works. And another thing, what many, many people don't understand, those houseless people you see on the street that you're judging and saying, oh, they just don't want to work. Many of them, guaranteed, are living disciples. They don't need a house. They don't need a job. And so people that call themselves spiritual, religious, Christian, whatever, they walk by these people and judge them, not realizing they may be walking right by Jesus and not following what he literally taught. And so I just wanted to share that, because these people on the street, these houseless people, I learned so much from them, and I am so grateful. And I've seen the light in these people. So I just really want everybody to understand that the next person that they walk by and have a judgment because they're on the street, because they're dirty, they may be walking by Jesus or whoever they think is important. And I just think that's important for people to know. It's not how it seems.
Beautiful. Yeah, appreciate that. Um, I have in my podcast YouTube channel, I have a couple of workshops, and one of them is remembering and honoring your soul contracts.
Mm,
And that's something for us to understand, that we all came into this life with contracts that we've made to have certain experiences, certain growth, and to facilitate that growth in others, right? And it takes sometimes going through difficult experiences together to fulfill that contract. And a quick story about that. I have a family member who lost his 5-year-old son, and he was a firefighter. He was an EMT. He was strong. He was brave. And his son came down with what looked like a really bad flu. The doctor said, oh, he had a flu, send him home, fluids, whatever. And he had an intestinal obstruction. And by the time the ambulance came, my family member was holding him in his arms. They were working on him, trying to keep him alive till they got to the hospital, and he died in my family member's arms. And this absolutely shattered his life. And he was filled with so much guilt that here he was with all of this knowledge and capability, and he couldn't stop that, right? And also he was filled with so much guilt that he never had a chance to tell his son how much he loved him. right? And so years went by, his life changed so much. He changed work because of the depression and the anger, and his marriage dissolved, and all kinds of changes happened in him that led up to him dating a family member. And eventually we were introduced to each other, and I began to talk to him about some of the spiritual teachings that I follow and about dreams. And I said, he said, I've never dreamt about him and it kills me. Never had a dream with my son. So, I gave him an exercise to do, and that he could, chant a word. He could ask the divine to have a meeting with his son, think about his son before he went to sleep. And a couple of weeks later, we came back and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but I did what you said. And I was walking on the beach in my dreams, and my son came running up to me, and he threw his arms around me and hugged me, and we just cried and cried, and he said, I told him, oh, I love you so much, I miss you so much, I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. I have all of this guilt, I could not save you." And he said, his son looked at him and kind of laughed, and he said, Daddy, it's okay. You can always be with me, right? But we had a contract that I was going to die very young in order to save your life, because a long time ago, you saved mine.
Mm.
When he woke up from that dream, the guilt, the anger, the frustration went away, and he now had a opening of consciousness to be able to understand he can be with him, his son, anytime he wants, right? So sometimes when we go through, whether it's a near-death experience of ourselves or a sudden death experience of a loved one, it's a contract being honored to open our hearts with pain, because pain opens your heart and allows divine love and wisdom and freedom to come in. And in time, we realized that that was a contract to liberate each of us. It liberated his son from the contract that he had made to pay back having his life saved. And it liberated the father, right, from all of that guilt, right? So, yeah, very important stuff. I have another workshop in there as well for listeners out there, and that is discovering how to be of service, right, through life and afterlife. Now, you can learn to start practicing how to serve the divine and how to serve all of life. You could start practicing that right now. And also, you can be doing it in your dreams. And then also, when it's time to shed this physical body, you can continue to do that work, that service, that teaching, that helping, that learning, right? After that. So, for those of you who go to MikeDeLucaPodcast.com, you'll see all of the workshops. You'll also see all of these interviews. Sean, I want to open it up. We've got very patient viewers here. For those of you in the Zoom meeting, if you want to use your golden hand, you know how to do that, right? Uh, you can do that, and I will call on you. If you don't know how to do that, if then you can just kind of unmute yourself and ask the question. We have a whole bunch of people. For those of you, and we have a bunch of people in our Facebook group, if you want to just type in the comment section your question, I will ask that of Shaun. So first in the Zoom room, anybody have a question, a comment for Shaun?
While you're waiting for somebody to raise their hand, I just wanted to comment on that story that you shared. And how many, and this is something that I learned, we don't know what anything is for, meaning these soul contracts. So like, especially like suicides, if somebody commits suicide, so often people think one thing, not realizing that the soul contract of the person that committed suicide, that might have been their plan to then help their parents or their loved ones have an awakening. So I love that you brought that up, because that's one of the many things that I've learned is it's not what we think always.
And that contract you had with your nephew, that, not only teaching you to puff out, but he breathed the breath of life into
Yeah.
you. That's incredible, right? Um, that's such a beautiful connection that we have.
And
Uh,
sometimes our biggest whatever you want to call them, foes, if we've been in relationships with narcissists, people that treated us terrible, those are also soul contracts. It's hard for people to understand when you're in the middle of it, but yeah.
okay, I promise you, Shaun does not bite. There we go. Claudette. Claudette, what's your question? Thank you so much for being the second person to ask a question. I was the first. So please unmute, Claudette, and let's hear your
Yeah.
question.
Okay. Um, I guess one of the thing that as human being we have to go through is about judgment. And what you said is helping me to realize that we when we have a better vision or understanding of the situation, the judgment is not necessary. It doesn't, it's we let go of the judging people. And I think it's I was really I think from what you shared is when your mom was able to see to teach you how about her life, and from there you were able to understand the situation. And that's a great experience and a great gift to know about that. And every single people have their own experience, their own past. But when we judge, we cannot see that. But we need to understand that there is something else behind some behavior and some pain or suffering. Or so thank you for sharing that experience with your mom. I think it was very, because it helps me to understand better behind the judgment
Yeah.
and what.
Honestly, thank you for saying that. I was amazed too. When she showed me this and when I understood this, because you know, um, A Course in Miracles teaches this thing, about forgiveness. It's not forgiveness like other, religions teach, like we're absolving somebody of their sins. It's literally when we have the full 360-degree view of where this person's coming from. It's really impossible to judge because we don't know. And so that helped me a lot. Like if somebody's awful or rude, or it helps me realize they just might have had the worst day of their life. I don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was one of the many beautiful lessons, but probably the most life changing for me is that.
Yeah,
So thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudette. Okay, who would like to be next? While we're waiting, you're in Hawaii, and Hawaii is the home of Ho'oponopono, right?
Oh,
Had-
oh, yes. Yeah.
yes. Um, and that it's so beautiful. You know, not only is it something that liberates us, but it liberates the other people in our lives.
Yes.
And you know, please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. And I've been at bedside for a number of people on their way to leave this physical life. And that spirit of making peace is such a liberating thing. And for many of them, it allows them to make a transition so much easier. And for those having a near-death experience, it can be what allows them to take their lives to a whole nother level. Because sometimes a near-death experience is to force us to get to that point where we've got to let go of everything,
Yeah.
right? And it's time to forgive everyone, including ourselves.
Yes.
And the healing that happens allows us to take the next step. And if it means being able to come back, we come back. If it means it's time to graduate, we graduate. But it is such a powerful and liberating force when we can stop judging, which you talked about. We can let go of fear, but we can also forgive, right? And understand that, we have contracts with everyone and everything. And in the end, we are all doing what we have been guided to do in order to help each other learn more about divine love, receiving it, giving it, and achieving our highest spiritual potential. And we can't do any of that without loving, without forgiving, without stopping the judgment and seeing the divine in each and every being, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I am grateful that you're there helping people do that, and you've given them a place to come to do that. So
Yeah. You know what? What's amazing about Ho'oponopono is I've been lucky enough to become a level 3, which is very rare here. It takes a long time. I I'm so grateful that I was taught from Kahuna's the original as they taught it. And what's funny it's the same truth whether you want to go to A Course in Miracles or it's just all different. And it is seeing people differently. And Hugh Lin, who was one of the he learned from the lady that brought it back, Moana, but he actually healed an entire mental ward at a prison here, not meeting them one-on-one, but because he saw them whole and divine. And so that's the other thing is we have the ability to heal others by seeing them whole and divine and not seeing all their flaws and all those other things. And that's what's so amazing is that every one of us has the ability to heal others as well as ourselves just by seeing them as divine. And that's
yeah,
documented what he did. They
yep.
shut down the whole ward after he did that.
Yeah, that is so powerful to be able to look in the mirror every day and recognize I am a divine being, right? Yeah, it's about shifting our identity, right? Away from that which is limited to that which is limitless. When then we do the same for others, when we stop looking at limitation and we look at the limitlessness that's inside of them, We recognize they're divine, I'm divine, the divine is divine, because we're all part of that ocean, right? We're all just waves in that ocean, going out in our own direction, seeking experience, but we are all connected. And regardless of what we think, what we believe, what our experiences in the past, what we have, what we don't have, none of that matters. In the end, we are all connected. We are all part of that one source. And by recognizing that in ourselves and each other, so much growth happens. And
Yeah.
just
And,
life.
not arrogant. For those of us that have had trouble with narcissists, that me and many of, that was one of my first things, is this feels so egoic. Like I almost felt like, why me after the NDEs? Like, why me? I almost felt not worthy. And once I started realizing, yes, we're all connected and every one of us is part of the divine. And like those rays behind you, all of us are part of those rays, and every single one of us, nobody's left out. And I think that's the thing that I wished that I could help more people understand, that nobody's left out. We're all divine. And if we could all start seeing that in ourselves just a little bit more, wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, it truly would, and it's something that hopefully we don't have to wait to have a near-death experience to start practicing. Um, let's start having more near-life experiences.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, you don't have to be stubborn like me.
okay, we've got another few minutes. Who else? Who else has a question or a comment? I see a lot of very, very wise people in the audience here that I recognize and know how deep your wisdom and your love is. So I appreciate you being here and doing what you do and being who you are. And you all know who you are because I'm looking right at your names. So
I don't know how much time we have left, but I do want to say something about the Spiritual Awakenings International Conference.
let's do that. I'm going to bring up a slide for that, and I want you to definitely let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, this Spiritual Awakenings conference, the folks behind that were kind enough to uh, help connect me with Shaun, and we're going to actually have several speakers this month from Spiritual Awakenings International. So yeah, they are having an online conference. It's their 2026 conference. And it's going to be online on Zoom, June 6th and 7th. And you can go to spiritualawakeningsinternational.org. And there's going to be a lot of people you know attending, and a lot of people you don't know, but who are going to be worth knowing. Can you talk a little bit about the organization, what they do? Because it's made up of people from all kinds of backgrounds of spiritual study and experience. And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I love Spiritual Awakenings International, and I'm on their advisory board and have been part of the organization almost from the beginning. And what I love about what they do is Yvonne Kaysen, the who started it, is a medical doctor, and she herself is an experiencer and has had all these kind of experiences, and she's the one that coined the term spiritually transformative experiences. And so what I love about Spiritual Awakenings International is that it's not just about NDEs. It's not just about it's which is Hawaiian Irons is the same way. And but she has made it more very inclusive. And what actually helped me after I'd had my NDE and I was doing my groups, because everything I've learned is experiential. Like I experienced it, and that's how I've been learning it. But I didn't understand how it all fit together. And through her work, in explaining all the different kinds of spiritually transformative experiences, that's what this organization's about. So this conference in June 6th and 7th, which I will be leading some panels, and also I'll be a featured speaker there. It's all kinds of experiences, and that's what people often forget, or not, they don't realize. A lot of people think, well, I haven't had a spiritual experience or a spiritually transformative experience. But then when they listen to some of the others, they realize, oh, yeah, I have. So that's what this conference is going to be about. It's going to have Kundalini awakenings, after death communication, mystical experiences, shamanic experiences, and of course, near death experiences. And I'm a patron co-sponsor of Hawaiian Irons, as well are you. And it's great to be part of it. And I do want to also mention, which we've kind of talked about, but that's at Hawaiian Irons, that's what we're about too. Even though I had a few NDEs and I'm affiliated with Irons, I'm affiliated with Spiritual Awakenings as well. So you don't have to have had an NDE to come to my events or Spiritual Awakenings International. Any spiritual experience, or if you're just interested in them, it's really a great place. And SAI also does sharing groups as well every month. So they and I lead sharing groups with them every other month. So yeah, and the conference is free. And I don't know if Kimberly's still here, but Kimberly Meredith, who was here a while ago, I don't know if she's still in the audience. She's going to be a speaker there, and it's going to be great. And again, it's free, so everyone can just watch from home.
Yeah, so that's spiritualawakeningsinternational.org. Important that it's .org. And that conference is coming up June 6th and 7th. And by the way, Dr. Kaysen is going to be our guest next Sunday. That's the 17th of May. And I'll be posting that on Facebook this week. Very excited to have her. And she's going to be talking about her new book, which I'm really excited about. I just got a copy of it. It's, let me give you the title, Roadmap to the Great Awakening. So I'm looking forward to interviewing Dr. Kaysen next Sunday. Same bat time, same bat channel. And
she's an amazing lady.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, she's amazing. I'm really enjoying the people that I've met, and I'm looking forward to interviewing a bunch of them. It's quite a find for me to find all kinds of different speakers and authors and doctors, MDs and PhDs and all kinds of backgrounds celebrating this process of spiritual awakening and this process of celebrating all of our spiritual adventures that we're having, and celebrating all the spiritual paths and all the religions and all of the opportunities we have to learn about ourselves as spiritual beings and our relationship to the divine and each other. I did, Shaun, want to touch again on the work. Shaun runs IANDS, serving Neil
Hawaiian Irons.
Hawaiian Irons.
Regular Irons is a different organization. We're affiliated, but different. Right. Yeah.
You run the Hawaiian Irons.
Yeah.
In the Hawaiian Islands.
But you don't have to be in Hawaii. Our members are all over the world.
Right.
I just always like to make clear that we're not ions.org, we're hawaiianirons.com.
Okay.
Even though people think we're the same.
Yeah. But to make it real easy for you, I wanted to just mention that Shaun does all of this on a volunteer basis. He runs incredible groups. He's done incredible service for people. And he works strictly on, survives on donations that people make. And I'm putting up here on here if you want to take a picture or write it down. If you go to his site, ShaunLether.com, you can see all the links. And if you want to donate, you'll see a link for that. Or if you want to just go ahead and donate, there is his donation link, HTTPS colon, I mean, is it colon? Yeah, colon /
Yeah,
bit.
or you can just go bit.ly
Yeah,
/support Hawaiian Islands,
yeah.
or just the easiest is just ShaunLether.com, because it has all the links. If you want to come to our speaker events, we do healing workshops, sharing groups, and all the links are there.
Great.
And thank you for mentioning that, because my relationship with money changed after the NDE. Literally, I used to, everything I did was in relation to wealth and material. And now it's the opposite. It's all about helping others. And because that's one thing you learn in an NDE. The only thing you can take with you is who you loved, who you helped, who loved you. That's it. Nothing else.
Right. There are no U-Hauls behind hearses.
Right. The Egyptian tried, though, right?
They try. Yeah, they try. So with that, I want to reiterate for my viewers and listeners here, we don't sell anything on this show. We don't, we're not paid to do anything or talk about anything. Everything about this show is all about service. And it would help me, though, if you would go to MikeDeLucaPodcast.com and watch some of the previous interviews and workshops. If you would subscribe to the podcast, doesn't cost anything, but it helps me in my YouTube recognition. And people who are searching for it find it a lot easier the more subscribers. So if you feel moved to go there, go watch past episodes. There's over 165 videos there from the last 6 years of doing this. Great interviews with great people. Please go there, take a peek, like the videos you watch, subscribe to the channel, like the channel.
And comment and share the videos.
Comment and share.
That
Comment
would
and
help.
share. And make it positive comments. Okay, this is last chance for anyone who has a question. And if not, if you're feeling shy or you prefer to be private, send Shaun an email. If you go to that website we just gave you, his email address is on there. Send them an email. Shaun, I hope someday to be talking in front of your audiences.
Yeah,
Love to
that would
do
be
that.
fun. I really want more people. I want to share, I love your story and your experiences, and that would be awesome. And also, yes, if people are on Facebook, I have several groups, Hawaiian Islands and near-death experiences, and groups for empaths. Many of us are empaths and we feel everything deeply, and we're having spiritual experiences, but so yeah, and then of course come to our free groups, and I love to help in any way that I can, because I know what it's like to be there and think you're going a little crazy and not knowing where to turn. So thank you for this opportunity, Mike. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be fun to have you come speak at Hawaiian Islands.
love to do that. Love to do that. Thank you for being here and sharing your generous heart and your experiences. For everyone who's here tonight, both in Zoom and on Facebook, thank you for being here. If there are any mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. Um, I deeply appreciate when anyone makes an attempt to learn something more than they knew before, especially to learn something about themselves, about life, about our own divinity, our connection with each other. The fact that you made the effort tonight means so much to me, and it means so much to others that will be touched by what you gain and share. Every one of you is so precious. You are so precious to me. You are so precious to life, so precious to the divine, so precious to all of us, whether they're here in this group or whatever group or out there in another dimension on another planet. It doesn't matter. The love that you share and your desire to grow uplifts us all. So I love you all, and I'm grateful for you all. I really look forward to seeing you again. Maybe next week. It's going to be a great interview with Dr. Yvonne, and the weeks to come, we're going to have great interviews. I'll be doing more workshops. Try to get a workshop in every month or two to really dig deep into some of these topics. Uh, so with that, I love you all. Appreciate you all. I wish you all a good night, a good week, a good life, and we will see you on our next episode. So take good care.
Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.